Welcome to Faith in 5, a weekly video devotional designed to discuss practical spiritual concepts in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Vandella. The rank of office is not what makes someone a great leader. Leadership is the choice to serve others, with or without any formal rank. You can also easily judge the character of a man or a woman by how he or she treats those who can do nothing for them. Let us all be the leaders we wish we had. These seem like they're quotes straight from the Bible, and that's what I thought as I read through probably my favorite leadership book of 2019 is Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last. And I think it was my favorite is because I didn't really know much about Simon before I read his this is a second book of his that I've read. And as I was reading, I just kept thinking like, whoa, wait a second. You know, it's almost like one of those games like, who said it, right? Is that from the Bible or is that out of who or leaders eat last? And as I was reading it, it was really challenging on the leadership side, but it also was a spiritual faith journey for me. These are the concepts that Jesus regularly taught. The way Jesus led was, no, it's not about leader first. It's not about me and it's not about you. It's about the kingdom, right? It's about God. We want to point people in that direction. And one of the things that really always inspired me about Jesus and one of the characteristics I try to live out is humility. And in our world today, we often kind of see humility as weak. We see humility as meek and mild. And the way that Jesus did humility was so powerful. And the way that Simon writes in his book, Leaders Eat Last, is also such a great picture of humility. One of the things that I notice about Jesus as you read story after story about him is he was always listening. And he was asking questions, and then he would listen. He wasn't always talking. And it's pretty fascinating because Jesus was a teacher, right? He often spoke to large crowds, and he was instructing people on how to live life. But if you read story after story after story, almost the moment he gets off stage and he gets with people, he starts asking questions. Tell me more about you. What's your story? How do you feel about this? What do you think here? He was a lifelong learner. And the only way you can be so fascinated and interested with other people is if you're humble enough to not be so focused on yourself and everything you already know. The reality is, if we're always talking, we can't possibly be learning. Because when we're talking, we're only repeating things we already know. And so one of my favorite, like early on in the life of Jesus in the Bible, as they start telling the story about Jesus in the Bible, is a moment where we find Jesus. He's kind of wandered away from his family. His family goes to Jerusalem, as families did for Passover, and Jesus kind of disappears. And they set off to go back home, and they realize, where is Jesus? And so they go back and they find Jesus among the teachers. Jesus, right? I mean, he's young at this time, but still he's Jesus, right? So even at a young age, Jesus was thirsty for new information. He humbled himself. He was always learning. He was always asking more questions, whether it was knowledge or insight into people, what they were thinking or feeling. Jesus did, I would say, more time listening than he did talking. As you read the Bible, as you consume the life of Jesus, explore the places where he is humble. One of the key characteristics in leadership studies now that people desire of leaders is humility. And so this week, as you live out your faith, consider where maybe the places that you don't know, get more inquisitive. Try to learn more. Instead of hide from those things, like, oh, well, I don't know, so I can't talk about it, or it makes me uncomfortable. Jesus went into those places and with open eyes and said, I'm here to learn. I want to learn more about you. And second, I would challenge you to instead of just learning new things, whenever you're with other people, be passionately curious about them. In doing so, again, Jesus models it. It takes our focus off of ourselves, and it's a model of leadership that changes, honestly, where we move people in this world and the way they experience God. I don't know much about Simon Sinek and his faith journey. If you research him, he has a lot of blogs that seem like he is a Christ follower. But one of the things that he says in a blog that I found of his about his faith is he says, he's telling a story about a time where like things didn't go well, like the world was not right. And he said, yes, in that moment I realized the world we live in is not yet the world I want to live in. But I am an optimist, and I can still clearly imagine that world, and I know I have a role to play in that world. This week, as you live out your faith, humbly submit yourself to looking at this world differently and how you can impact this world for better. Thanks for watching Faith in 5. If you like what you see, please like and share. If you're interested in making a donation to our ministry, please click the link below.